Hello, dear students. Welcome back to the class of history. And today, in this video, we are going to discuss about the uh, different sources of history apart from inscription and coins. We'll also read about Tarikh and Twarikh, and we are going to read and discuss this in detail. And we are also going to look forward for circle of justice, that what does it signifies and why was it important for both the rulers as well as the peasants. So in order to Okay, so this is the very first slide in which we are going to talk about the discussion, in which we are going to discuss about Tarikh and Twarikh. Let's move on to the next slide. As we can see that, and we can and we can get an idea that what is it Tarikh and Twarikh all about, because we can see here the images of inscription as well as coins on the screen. We can see that inscriptions you can see, and coins. What are these inscriptions and coins? So we all know that these are the sources of history. So basically we get an idea about the history from these inscriptions and coins. So what the related term is Tarikh and Twarikh. When we talk about Tarikh or Twarikh, so these are the histography which are containing the history, which were often written by the learned men's or the people who were very knowledgeable in those times. So basically Tarikh and Twarikh is nothing but is in another source of history which is present and which gives us the detail about uh, the past. Okay, so basically when we talk about the term Tarikh and Twarikh, do you know Tarikh is actually a Persian words, and Tarikh stands for singular, that means for a single event, and Twarikh is plural term, that means it represents the multiple events. So that is what is Tarikh and Twarikh is all about, and we are going to look forward in the other slide. Let us see. Okay, so these you can see that that manuscripts were also one of the historical records, and let us see that how these manuscripts were made. So as you can see in image 1 here, it's A part, which is depicting that a person is making a paper, and B is referring or indicating that he is writing the text. And in the C we can see that he is melting the gold in order to important or highlight the important points, right? Because in today's day we all have a highlighter wherein we use our pens in order to underline or highlight the text on the textbook or in notebook, wherever we feel like the things are important. But in earlier times, that gold was one of the things which was used to highlight the important points. So actually we did not have paper so widely used. So in the same way, we were not having in the technology was not so very upgraded and updated. So what happened, the people used to melt the gold in order to highlight the important points, right? And what about the let's see what is the person who is depicting in the fourth picture. We can see he's preparing the binding. So he is actually binding the entire pages which were prepared, and that is how a manuscripts were written. And that these are not very easy, because we can see that the person are really putting hard work in order to make a manuscript. So I think everybody now going to remember the four stages that are involved in making a manuscript, that is preparing the paper, writing the text, melting gold to highlight the important points, as well as binding the entire paper content, right? So that is how the manuscripts were made. Let us see what is there in the next slide. Okay, so let us understand something more in detail about Twarikh. Now you can see that the very first point indicate that the authors of Twarikh lived in cities and hardly ever in villages. So this is one of the information about the writers of Twarikh, who were the learned men. And definitely, you know, that these were they were living in mainly in Delhi, because that was a major center of ruling or administration, we can say. And they used to live in cities, and they hardly ever lived in the villages. And you know that as the prashastis were written, as the other historical records were written, why we actually write the historical records? Because everybody knows that this will be thing from which the king will be memorized or will be known. In the same way, like prashastis were written in praise of kings, but Tariq doesn't give such information. But yes, all the prashasti writer used to get something in terms of reward, in terms of land grant from the ruler, because they used to write about them, about the rulers, and and their glorified history. In the same way, the authors of Tariq were also writing the Tariq or the histories about the rulers in the hope of rich rewards or gifts, right? And you know that okay, as we can see that, you know, that these authors of Tariq also advised rulers to preserve the social order, that is known as an ideal social order. So according to the authors of Tariq, it was said that the rulers were often used to make an order that was based on birthright and gender distinctions. So okay, that means, what is birthright? As you know, that you must have seen that in when we see the rulers in the past, we can see whether it is in Mughal Empire, whether it was in table 1.1 in Delhi Sultans. You can see there was a list of rulers, and where you can see that it was in hierarchy which was followed. Like after the father, the son has to rule, and after the son, the son has to rule. So it was in the position was, we can say, was in hereditary nature. That means one after the other has to take place. So basically, birthright is something when the rights were often given on the preferential orders, in terms of the people who are belonging from rich and influential families should be brought to the higher positions. And likewise, on the other hand, you know that unfortunately, in history it was believed to maintain the gender distinctions, right? Gender distinctions in terms of that there should be a difference between male and a female, that it should be always like that, male should be given more rights, more responsibilities, and more opportunities as compared to the women. Uh, and that was believed by the authors of Tariq, and somewhat it was led to the next level to the rulers even, and that was made to believe. But yes, we should not deny the fact that Razia Sultan was the first female ruler who ruled for 4 years, and she was the most able ruler in terms in that particular dynasty. And you know that she was the first female ruler, and in instead of making these brothers to the on the ruling position, the father chose Razia because she was one of the most intelligent and um, able ruler as compared to her brother. So she was brought into the position, right? So with this,